Welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to talk about the free short trip adventure Forever Fallen, written by Joshua Winesco. This was part of a competition that Big Finish do once every year as a memorial to one of the writers who sadly passed away. And what they do is that each year they do they have a contest, and whoever wins has a free short trip adventure where they have one of the actors read out the parts. Here it is read by Nicholas Briggs. Now, we've already talked about some of the short trips, and originally I wasn't going to tackle any stories in the short trip adventures. I don't have them on CD, and usually the short trip stuff isn't really something that I'm interested in, but in fact I tackled the series, I tackled the free short trip adventures just so I can talk about Forever Fallen. Okay, it's really awkward with this and with the light, so I'm going to put that to the side. The reason I wanted to tackle this entire free Big Finish range of short trip adventures is because of Forever Fallen. There was no reason why this story should be so goddamn good. I mean, I might even put it up there as one of the best 7th Doctor adventures that is out there. And it's free on the Big Finish website. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, do yourself a favour, get a Big Finish account, it's free. Go and track this story down, download it, listen to it. You're not going to be disappointed. Do you know how sometimes you get stories where you feel like it's been cheapened, where you've spent a certain amount of money and you felt like for what you're getting, you're not getting enough of your money's worth? Well, this is kind of the opposite scenario, in which a story is free, but I feel like I really should have paid money for this. It's something which I would think, actually, I think Big Finish might have had a missed opportunity to sell this and make a lot of money out of it, because this is a high-rated story, not just by me, by the entire fan base is considering this, the ones who've listened to it, as one of the greatest pieces of work in Big Finish's catalogue, and it's free. I can't stress this enough. It's free. You have no excuse not to listen to it. It will hook you into into Big Finish's short strips, which again I'm not particularly a fan of myself, but this really got me hooked. But yeah, so there's not really much to talk about in terms of plot. It is a short strip adventure, but this story does something very unique, and it is probably one of the stepping stones. It's not the only reason why this story is so good, but I think it is easily an element which makes it so good. But you see, this story tackles a particular element in Doctor Who, and maybe in most franchises with a very clear protagonist. You see, in most stories, superheroes, Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, we get that moment at the end where the villain is maniacal, he's getting ready to release all of his plans, and the hero steps in and goes, "Please don't do it, I beg of you. You can change, honestly, you can go back, you can take a different path, you can be good. Just please don't do this." And obviously, 9 out of 10, the story plays out with the villains going, "No, I must, for my plans, for my entire, because it must, my plans must be unveiled." This story tackles the idea, what if somebody said yes to giving up their evil plans? What if they said, "Okay, I'll take you on your offer"? That's the premise that we're dealing with. It's one of those ideas that when you hear it, when you're listening to the story, you beg the question, how has nobody done this before? It is such a great idea. And what I think is really spot on is that I think this is a story that could only work in a mini episode short trip adventure. I don't think this is an idea that could have played out in a full length adventure. As much as I really love the concept, it is a very small concept. And I understand why it hadn't played out in like a long series adventure. But for like a mini episode, for a mini, like a short story, in any sort of form, that doesn't take a lot of time. I'm surprised this hasn't been done before, or at least hasn't been done so much that we talk about it a lot. So this is one of the rare occasions where we have such a unique idea which is spot on for the medium that we're getting the story. And just right off the bat, we've already got a great setup, a great workup, just on the premise alone. But does it live up to its hype? Of course it does, otherwise I wouldn't be flabbergasted about it. But to get on to the actual story itself, we get introduced to a character called Calvin. When we start off this story, he's already basically at the edge of his master plan. He's working on this, seemingly I think it's a space station called the Labyrinth. The Leviathan, it's called the Leviathan. And basically it's like the ultimate machine. It can mind control a huge population of people. It also has an army of robots in case one or two do not surrender their will to its power. And this character, he's just about to set off when he is interrupted by the Doctor, the Seventh Doctor. Now, if there's any Doctor was going to try and talk his way out, the villains out of doing their plans, it's going to be the manipulative chess master himself. Nicholas Briggs doesn't do a good job, in my opinion, at replicating the character of the Seventh Doctor. His idea of the Seventh Doctor seemingly is just give him, roll his R's a little bit, and it is hard to believe him as the Seventh Doctor, but the script that he's given here does believe you that this is the Seventh Doctor, and you can easily imagine Sylvester McCoy saying these words in his darker manner. And I think what makes the story take full advantage of its premise is that we see the villain, in this case it's Calvin's point of view. He wants to set off this master plan. The Doctor even jokingly says that he's got a laser machine so he can carve his face on the moon. But at least at this stage in his life, it's not like that. He basically believes that society is struggling with wars, with day-to-day like politics and stuff, and feels like he can put it right. In fact, the Doctor kind of states it's like, so you have a plan to make a better world by enslaving everybody, by taking away their freedom just for a moment so you can fix everything. Maybe you'll use this machine for a week. But that little element, freedom, the ability to cause crime, to cause harm, but also the ability to create, to have creative style, creative substance, and to enjoy happiness at its purest form. That element you literally cannot put into your equations. So 1 week where you try to fix things will turn into 2 weeks, will turn into a month, which will turn into more months. And and before you know it, it will become a lifetime. And Calvin is kind of persuaded. You could see him, he's kind of struggling. He's like, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to let everything stay as it is. But on the other hand, he doesn't want to take people's freedoms away. He wants a better world for everybody. That's why he's doing this. he doesn't want to be evil. It's just that he's seen it to him, from his point of view, this plan seems necessary, but it just doesn't know when to stop. Until the doctor makes him an offer, like, please, just trust humanity. I know it cannot work out sometimes. I know they can cause wars, pain, suffering, but there's also an element of happiness, of joy, of connectability within this community. So please, give it a try. And with that speech, at the start of the story, he gives up his plan and he joins the rest of society. The story then does something, again, another interesting element. It skips a year where Calvin and the doctor have arranged to meet up at a cafe, to which they agree to meet up at this cafe once every year. And the story basically plays out seeing us each time they interact with one another. So it gives us a great time frame of when these events take place. The second day, the first year after the events, Calvin goes to the coffee shop and he meets the doctor and he gets introduced to Ace. And right off the start, you can tell he isn't happy and he is kind of regretting taking the doctor's actions. At this point in his life, he is actually a cleaner, somebody who takes out the trash, and he believes that he was made more than this. He was made to change humanity for the better, and here he is scrubbing up bins. If he didn't listen to the doctor, he wouldn't be in this terrible situation. And the doctor's like, please, just give it, keep trying, just have hope in humanity, things will work out, I promise you. And Ace kind of takes the mick in a sense, when she finds out that he is a garbage cleaner. She laughs at him. She gives him like nicknames to like insult him in a way, and he really isn't happy with his situation. And then he leaves abruptly to continue. He states that he's going to continue to try and see if he can make a better situation, but he's not happy. We cut to the second year. He comes back at the cafe, and though he's still a bit grumpy, he's a little bit better in a sense. Somebody he befriended on his job, their sister worked for a tech company, and he actually got a job at a tech company. The problem is that he's hired as a junior assistant, and he believes that he is much more important than this. He stated to the doctor that he created his robot army at the age of 9, and he created all this vast masses of technology way before anybody at his age could have. And now here he is, gone from being a janitor to a junior secretary to a scientist. He also states that he absolutely hates his boss. But he does kind of see the picture. He starts slowly realizing, like, right, I am better than I was last year. And I'm not an idiot to give up this opportunity. I know that there's a chance. If I keep striding, that my genius will prevail in this situation. I can make a difference. Just give me time. I will move up in the ranks and I will become important. We then cut to the third year, where he is surprisingly happy and he's smiling. And Ace actually notices a wedding ring on his finger. It seems like his boss, who he hated last year, is now his wife. And he actually thanks the doctor. It's like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have changed my thoughts and I wouldn't have been in this situation. And then we cut to the next year, where it turns out he's now a father. He has a daughter. I can't remember the daughter's name. But he's really happy, and he shows pictures to Ace, and they actually come get along very well. And he explains like he has high hopes for her and this is amazing. He couldn't be in such a better situation. He thanks the doctor. He's so glad that the situation he's been put in is such a better one than what he had planned out. And so he thanks the doctor. We then cut to a year later. Well, not everything seems to be all right. When the doctor and Ace ask about his family, he says they're okay, and he shows photos. However, he doesn't seem to be in any of them. And he states then that he doesn't see them all that much. His plans, his work, his research gets in the way, and that he doesn't see his family anymore. Not much these days. His wife has now divorced him, so things are starting to look on the down end. But yeah, he also there's also a great scene where he stated about his plans for his daughter, that he wishes for her. He's basically planned out the first 5 years of her life to go into a science background where she will learn to be a great importance to the history of science, where Ace then snaps at him, where it's like, it's not your choice to make her what you want to be. If she wants to become a scientist, that's fine. If she wants to become a ballerina, an artist, a lawyer, that's her decision, not yours. And the doctor calms Ace down before he states to Calvin, it's like, I hate to be the manipulative type, but this conversation sounds very similar to one that we had when we first met, that you can't just take away people's freedom, their own choice, to fit the world which you believe is better. And Calvin is kind of like hit and miss. He doesn't really resolve the issue at that point. We then cut to a year later, where we're not at the cafe, we're at the Leviathan, where he is sitting on his throne, basically, and he is complex. And the doctor meets him up and is like, you're late for tea. And Calvin is confronted with himself. He doesn't want to do this, but the world has gone basically to shit. And he doesn't know what to do. And the doctor persuades him again to give up his plan. And Calvin is like, I come here to actually use the Leviathan, but more of an idea. I wasn't really going to use it because my daughter and the woman I love are down there, and I wouldn't want my Leviathan mind control to control them. I wouldn't want the world, that situation to put on them. I wouldn't want to take away their free will. I just come here to think, in a way. We then cut to the last year, in which Calvin actually now brings his daughter to actually, I tell a lie, it's not the last year, it's the year prior to the last year, where he actually brings his daughter to the cafe which has actually been restricted, which is actually going to be bought out for this day for a special party. But Calvin goes in anyway and finds the cafe empty with only 2 people in the room, the doctor and Ace, as they state that celebrations are in order as Calvin is now a hero. The doctor asks Ace to give the girl some company, the little girl, Calvin's daughter, and help her to teach her how to make milkshakes in a very nice little scene. There's a really great scene, Ace bonding with a little kid, and I always like it when Ace does that. It reminds me a lot of Remembrance of the Daleks, where she comforts that little girl at the end after the mind control of the Daleks has been wiped. But the Doctor and Calvin have a kind of discussion, and Calvin doesn't know if he's done the right thing, as he basically explains how he's become a public hero in a sense. Essentially, a war was about to break out, and Calvin used the Leviathan, but as he stated, it was literally a last-minute resort. If there was no other plan, he's going to use this. he only used it on a small, selective group of people, to which the government's armies can then take over and seize the enemy, and there was no harm done to anybody on either side. There was no casualties whatsoever. But he doesn't know if he's done the right thing, whether to use the Leviathan was a great thing at the time, or whether it was worse because it's sane. And the Doctor basically comforts him, saying that what he did was right, that he did only use it for like a short period. It's literally a last minute resort. But you understand now that this machine isn't for the best and is only good for very short, very specific situations. We then cut into the final day of Calvin and the Doctor's meeting, as Calvin explains that life isn't always so good. A journalist has been wondering how he got his hands on such a powerful device, and despite him trying to hide his past, he's haunted by the man he once was. This journalist actually came up to him and basically like, I know what you are, I know what you've done, I know your history, and I'll come up with you with a deal. You confess all about your evil plans years ago, and you could probably get a better situation, or I basically come off and you just look like the bad guy for doing it. And he discusses this with the Doctor, and the Doctor's like, you know what you got to do. You're right. And so Calvin then talks to his daughter, to which he explains he's going to go for a long time. For you see, he's done something horrible, and he needs to basically face the consequences of his actions, of his past mistakes. It's his choice to go away. It's his choice to basically send himself to prison. But he wants his daughter to know that he tried to do the right things. He might have done it in the wrong way, but he tried his best to do the right way. And he hopes that she will do the right things for the right reasons and do it in the right, proper manner. And so they leave the cafe for the final time as the Doctor and Ace discuss what's happened. As the Doctor explains that in the original timeline in which they didn't interfere, that Calvin mind-controlled his population and did actually carve his face on the moon. The situation for him, anyway, would have played out exactly the same way. There is, from his point of view, I believe this is the first time we actually get the word fixed point in our chronology. The Doctor actually explains in this story that there are actually two ways of saying it, depending on how pretentious you want to be. So that could link into why he hasn't said it before and how he's going to say it more often now. Basically, it's a fixed point. It cannot be changed despite time travel intervention, and if it does change, it will rip a fabric in space and time. And Ace is like, what the hell are we doing this for? Why did we spend our entire week trying to manipulate Calvin and trying to be a better man if every situation would have played out the exact same way, in a sense, for Calvin? And the Doctor states that it's not about him. One of the greatest genius minds. He's as smart as he believes. He's almost as smart as he believes he is. He's one of the greatest geniuses. So genius, in fact, that people in the future would be questioning how the ratifications of his scientific genius years after. And Ace is like, is he really that smart? And the Doctor's like, yes, but I wasn't really referring to him in terms of how we're manipulating stuff. It's about his daughter. You see, in the original timeline, when her father gets arrested, she would have thought as a great injustice. The way she was risen, the way she was brought up, the way her father, his ideologies, she would basically become vengeful and come out with his plans to try and take over the world, but without the moral compass which her father was working for, as her father had did the wrong things for the right reason. He wanted to fix the world, whilst she would have thought it was she would be doing it just for revenge on her father's part, and doing it just because her father wanted to do it. But now in this new timeline, in the one where they interfered, into which her father was a much better and kinder person, and taught her the values of justice, that she would see the man who gave up to go to prison, to voluntarily go to prison for his past mistakes. She would see that man as a great part of society, a great moral compass, and would grow up to be a vastly amazing scientist. It wasn't about him. It was never about Calvin. It was about leaving a great legacy behind. And that's how the story ends. That is Forever Fallen. Wow! What? This is something which I would have spent 20 quid on easily, knowing how good it is. But it's free on the Big Finish website. My only disappointment on that is that I can't get a physical copy. I want a physical copy. Big Finish, if you're listening to this, put it on CD. I want to buy it. But it can't, because it's part of the memorial competition that they do, which I guess part of the rule, in a sense, is that the audio dramas are free. So, yeah, it's easily one of the best. It's easily one of my favourite Seventh Doctor stories. Eighth doesn't have a lot to do in it, but it's a short story. You can't have everything. But with the exception of that, the story is perfect. We have the Seventh Doctor basically at his most iconic, in a way, of how we imagine him, this manipulative chess master. This is the Doctor at his most manipulative that we've seen of him so far. He's someone who would slowly put the ideas in someone's mind, checking up on him once every year to make sure that he's on the right path. Not for him, but for the legacy that he leaves behind. Calvin is just such an interesting character. He starts off as somebody who wants to do the right things, but doesn't know how to go about it except for the wrong way, to mind control everybody and take away people's freedoms. But slowly, but gradually, throughout the story, he grows to become such a great, fascinating, and have such this dilemma inside of him, and he's constantly conflicted between basically sticking around in this scruffy environment and hoping that the next day will be better, or to go back to his previous plan and try to fix things in the way that he thought was best. And slowly he's starting to realise that this slower path is the better path. And it's just such a great... The moral compass of this story is something which we all need to take to heart. That despite humans doing horrible and terrible things in the now, in the existence, things do get better. Things do look up for people who wait, people who strive for the best, but people who don't cheat. And that is one of the greatest lessons we can learn. So there you go, that's Forever Fallen. So join me next time where we will be talking about a fan film which I guarantee you've never heard of, which also features Sophie Aldred, Sylvester McCoy and John Leeson. So join me next time for Once Upon a Time Lord. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!